Welcome back to the channel, guys. Winks here. If you're playing Disgaea 7 and you want to get your stats to look like this, well, stick around and I'll show you how you can get here. Welcome back to the channel. Winks here. If you haven't already, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on anything that I upload. So today we are going to be discussing Disgaea 7. Now, like all my other Disgaea videos, I always teach you the best way step by step to get your stats max, right? Because this is a numbers game. I was gonna do some of these Disgaea 7 videos a while back, but due to school and some other things, I hadn't quite gotten to it yet. But I've had some of you asking when I was gonna do some Disgaea 7 videos, so I'm taking a break from Elden Ring and switching over to Disgaea 7 because I got some catching up to do. So as I always do in all my Disgaea videos, I always tell you there is a series of steps to follow in Disgaea to get your stats maxed, and there is sort of a particular order that you need to do these things in. Today, what you can expect in the video breakdown is going to go like this. So today we're going to discuss step 1 and what you need to do. I'm going to show you a couple different methods after I kind of tell you what's going on with this game to give you an understanding of how this is working, and then I'm going to show you 2 methods to do step 1, which is going to be extract farming. And then once I'm done, I'm gonna show you why this mathematically works out, and then that'll be it. Real quick, guys, before we jump into the demonstrations and I show you step 1, let me talk to the newer players here for a second. So if you've never played a Disgaea game before, as you can see here on this screen, when you first start playing this, your stats are going to look like this, even at max level 9,999, which is, it looks kind of high when you first look at it, but as a newer player, you need to understand that with these Disgaea games, you're probably wanting to reach stats that look more like this, because in Disgaea 7, you can actually reach the stat max with the 6 that you see on the screen, attack down to speed. HP and SP are a little different. I don't know that you will ever hit the max on that or if it's even worth it, but for the other 6 stats, you can hit max stats on there, and that limit is 99,999,999. So just understand that as we're talking through this, and understand also that these videos that I'm dropping are to get you to that point step by step if you follow them in order. So to understand what's happening, for step 1, we are talking about extract farming. So you veteran players already kind of know what I'm talking about. So when you beat the game, your first 10 million in stats towards this 99 million come from extracts, and I say that because of the natural flow of the gameplay. It is more practical to consider extract farming your first step in getting max stats. So where do you get extracts in Disgaea 7? Well, the extracts are slightly different from Disgaea 5 and Disgaea 6, but they still work the same way. It's just how you obtain them that is different. And in Disgaea 7, you get them through the hospital. I don't know why. I guess they just wanted to make it where the hospital actually did something in this game, because in the previous games, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't really use it at all. When you go into the hospital, there's this gotcha that you can go to here, and I'm sure that you veteran players have probably already seen other players talking about this gotcha. However, I have yet to see somebody use it to its full potential, and I'm hoping that with you watching this will be the way that you go. If you go here and you look at the prize list, if you pull up that menu, you can see at the very bottom of some of these, maybe not that one, but if you go to like this one, for example, you can see you have a whole list of extracts here. And there are several different tiers, if you will, in this hospital gotcha. And each tier kind of gives you a higher level of rewards. So ultimately, after you've beaten the main game, you want to end up here to the ultimate overlord or ultra overlord. I don't know what U means, but this is the last one that you want to get. What's happening here is if you don't understand quite fully what these extracts are doing, again, this is a stats game. So the hospital, if you pull up that menu, you can see here that there are 2 different stats listed here for each character, HP and SP. And every time you lose any of those 2 categories here, you fill it back up here in the hospital, and it costs HL to get to that and translate that over to a different resource for the gacha, which is called RP, which I believe, I could be wrong, guys, because I haven't looked at it in a minute, but I believe this is revive points. I'm not sure what it is, but your HL turns into RP, right? So from your stats, you get RP, and then that, when you pull this gacha, turns into extracts, and then it's just kind of like a closed system where you can take those extracts that you get from here and go to the juice bar, pick your character that you want to put them on, and you see over here on the right hand side, that's all the extracts that I've farmed through that gacha. You can just pick one of your characters and dump those extracts into that character, and as you see right there with the before and after, I've hit my 10 million my first 10 million limit that I described there, right? So he's hit that first limit. But in order to get those stats, like I said, step 1 is extract farming. You're turning stats into RP into extracts, and then it's feeding back into your stats like a closed system, thus making you even stronger with that character, right? So that's gonna be your step 1. Now step 2, because of the natural flow of how this game works, which I'm gonna talk about in a later video, you also start to unlock certain abilities during this process, and you can also see those in the prize list. Some of you unlock several abilities, and throughout these there are certain ones that you're going to want that are going to help you with step 2, which is going to be your mastering your classes.
Blessings be upon you.
But again, more on that later. So now that I've kind of explained how step 1 is sort of working and how the system within Disgaea works, let's talk about this gacha system a little more. So there are 9 different levels or 9 different tiers to this gacha system. The first 7 open up as you're going through the story and just kind of rolling this gacha and claiming because as you're rolling it, you're hitting some of those items over there on the right hand side. Like as you pull them, they start to check those off, and once you get all of them, you can claim the perks, and then you can move up to the next tier and start working on that one naturally. The last 2 is level 8 and level 9. You don't unlock those until you get to the Carnage levels, which you can see because of the rewards that it gives you. Those are Carnage items. So you got 9 of those. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because in the beginning I told you I was going to show you 2 different methods on how to do this, to how to efficiently farm or easily farm RP to get those 10 million in stats. So for method number 1, which I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna show you the setup and I'm gonna show you what that looks like mathematically too. For method number 1, you need to have at least gotten to the 7th tier, because there is there's an ability in here which you can see it on the screen called image change. You are going to get that from the 7th one here. And you won't get that until you've moved through the story enough to unlock this. So this is the first method I'm gonna show you, is more of kind of like, you can think of it as kind of like a mid-game method, and then I'm gonna show you a late-game method that is much better than using image change. The next one that you're gonna need to hit is the Ultra Overlord here, and that is because there is also one in here that you need to get, an ability called Power of Bowls. But both of those are gonna be for the method number 1 that I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you method number 1. And before I do, I want you to pay attention to the amount of RP that I have before we do this, because I want you to reference the number later on. Right now I have 3 RP, only because I couldn't get rid of that 3 right there, but I wanted it as close to 0 as possible, and I want you to see that. So the
Blessings
method
be
though
upon you.
has to be done, and you may have seen this again, other people have done this method, but it's really not the most efficient method, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. So the setup is like this. So you have to have a certain set of abilities, because remember that the hospital system is focusing on 2 of your different stats, HP and SP. So the 2 main important ones that you need are image change and secret recon. Power of bowls is good, but it is not required. It does help, but it's not required. And then Vanguard and Caster are the other 2 that you will be using. And the reason, we'll start at the bottom. So the reason these 2 are good, Vanguard and Caster, as you can see, increase SP by 5%, increase HP by 5%. Those are boosting those 2 stats a little bit more to give you a little bit more in the hospital system. Power of bowls, same concept, just trying to boost your stats a little bit here. Now these 2 right here are the most crucial. Image change, which I told you you got out of the gotcha system, and secret recon you get from mastering your classes, and you need to master the ninja up to 5 stars to get this one. So although this is step 1, keep in mind that it's not really as linear as I make it sound. You may do some jumping back and forth, but if you focus on one character and you just have him set to the ninja right from the beginning as you're mastering classes, you may not even have to jump around as much. But I'm just letting you know that you get this one from the ninja at class mastery 5, and image change comes from the gotcha system. So once you set it up, you set it up like this, in this exact order: image change, secret recon, power of bowls, Vanguard, Caster. And the reason is because if you read this first one, image change, switch values of HP and SP, and it also switches attack and intelligence, but we don't really care about that for this method. We only care about HP and SP. It switches those values. Secret movement increases your movement by 5, but max HP becomes 1. Now, your max HP becomes 1, but the capacity does not. Your capacity stays the same. Your meter stays the same. It just only fills your life to 1. So what happens is when you have secret recon down here, as you can see, it has kind of decreased my HP a little bit here, but watch what happens when I take image change off. You see, SP was 1, and then now my HP is 1 because I had the image change. It had my SP set to 1, and then I swapped it by taking image change off. So now my HP is 1, but that capacity, as you can see, is still the 307 million, right? Or whatever that number is. And that's why you do that, because when you go back to the hospital here and you look at that character, those are the 2 values that I'm gonna be filling back up to get that RP.
May God watch over
So
you.
what you do is you go back to your character, you make sure all of those are set up, which I'm gonna do it again. You just save it. You just save it. Once you get them all set up, just save it once in your shared ability list, and then you can just quickly load it to your other 10 characters or however many characters you're doing this with, right? So I loaded it back up, and then I just go to my next one. Well, not like that. Load. Go to my next one. Load. And you just repeat that process all the way down. And if you get good enough at it, you can get fairly quick at doing this. So now I got all 10 of those characters with that, right? So the same thing is gonna happen to them that happened to this first one, right? So once you get them all loaded in there, all you're gonna do is take it off, go to your next one. Take it off, go to your next one. And repeat that for all 10 characters. And you see their HP and SP dropping down as I'm doing this. Right? Once you get all 10 of them, you go back to that hospital. And you see none of them, all of their capacity is lower, as if they would have taken damage in battle. All you do is you just heal them, and then you go back to the gacha and you see how much RP I got for that, right? And I'm gonna do this again in a minute. I'm gonna time it and show you how long this takes, but you see the amount. So I started with 3, and now I've got like 6 billion here, right? So keep that number in mind. It's like 6.5 billion from doing method number 1 with the abilities. Once you get your RP, no matter if you're using method 1 or method 2, you just go over here and start pulling your prizes. Now, those percentages that you saw, and before I do this, let me make one more note. While you're doing this, you need to be in your cheat shop, and you need to make sure auto sell is turned on, and you need your sell type set to HL, because it'll just basically recycle everything that you're pulling out of that gacha and turn it back into more HL, so you can continue to heal your characters no matter which method you're using. And I don't know the exact ratio, but the RP that you get, it's like basically half costs. It's not 1 for 1 for HL and RP. I think it's like 2 RP for every 1 HL that you spend or something like that. So as you're doing this, you're gonna actually start making HL in the same time. So I need to mention that as well. But once you have started pulling on, once you've gotten your RP or whatever, and you come back to here and you start doing this, you start selling them, you're just gonna keep mashing this button over and over and over and over again. You'll see that RP going down as you're doing it. You're making HL as you're doing it. And that prize list, all those items in that list, they have a probability percentage next to them. So you're not always guaranteed to get an extract, but if you do this enough times, you will start to build up some of that extract. And that's gonna work for either one of these methods. So, I'm gonna go ahead and clear some of this out and stop the recording, and I'll pick it back up when we start talking about the next method. Okay guys, so I cleaned out all that RP, and I want you to reference this RP number again. It's 7. I couldn't get it to 0, which it's really a very minuscule amount. It doesn't really matter anyway in the overall grand scheme of things, but transparency, I want you to see I got it down to about 7. So now that I've talked about method 1, I'm going to show you method 2, and then I'm going to show you how I set it up. And then afterwards, I'm going to do both of them in real time as if I wasn't explaining it and doing it full speed. And then we're going to discuss the benefits of method 2 over method 1 and why. You see what I've got here? Now I'm going to show you method 2. So method 2 is much simpler. However, it is a later game method. And I should have also clarified that it does also require you to have the DLC in order for this to work. But it is better than doing the ability. Well, I guess they're both kind of ability ways, but this way I wouldn't think of it as an ability way, just to kind of keep it categorized in your mind. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the dimension guide, and there is a particular map on here that I like to use. So if you go to map 4, the normal map 4, and then you go to the final, if you remember during the story, this is where you fought a boss. So what we're going to do is I want to point out to you that there is one boss here, and this boss is very weak. Level 25, attack 296, you get the picture. But we're gonna bring a character out that I have set up, and you'll do the same thing. I have a specific character that I use for this, but I'm gonna bring my character out. I've maximized his travel distance and his throw range by going through the Dark Assembly, but he's a pretty generic character. We're gonna lift that character up, And then we are going to throw that character into the base panel. And as you will see, that base panel is going to get destroyed because this is a boss character and you cannot capture a boss. So everybody in that panel just died. I'm gonna end the turn, and then we're gonna finish this character off. Now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you the RP that we get from this after it finishes loading. So we're gonna go back to the hospital, and as you can see, this method here does not utilize the SP column. However, it does utilize the HP column, right? So the same thing we did with the ability method, we're just gonna heal them all. Now, when you look at this, there is a ton of RP here. Now I know, I know it doesn't seem like a lot. I say a ton, but if you remember back to method 1 using the ability method, that was about 6.5, right? So this is at about 9.7. So this is higher, and it did not use the SP column at all like the ability method did. Now, another thing I need to explain, and you'll see this when I do this full speed. I know it sounds very trivial, but when you start tracking this, if we're talking RP per hour, right? So you've got to understand, as you're doing either method, both of those methods take a certain amount of time for you as the player to execute. We consider that in the field that I'm in as cycle time or attack time, right? So that is part of the conversation if you are talking RP per hour, right? So you already saw that from the ability method, although we were using 2 different columns, we still yielded less RP than we did with this other method. And I'll show you also as we go through this that method number 2 that I just showed you that yielded 9.7 is also faster. So even if I had not yielded more than that 6.5 from the ability method, I still would have been doing better than that method by using method 2, because method 1 is slower using the abilities than going to that map and throwing a character into there. And I did the math on it already. When you're doing the ability method, it does give you big yields very fast, just swapping those abilities out back and forth. You don't even have to go into the map, but you still have to consider that turn time or that tack time. And what happens is, if you think about what's happening here, is that you have a limit. There is eventually a limit that you reach when, if we're talking RP per hour, you spend more time swapping those abilities out than you do just running that continuous map over and over and over again. And I've done the math on it, and your limit, you start to lose the benefit of the ability way of farming this RP and these extracts when you do it about 20 characters, because you really only get to do that cycle about 4 times, right? So I could be wrong on the 4 times part, but it is definitely, your limit is definitely 20 characters. And the first time around I was doing this, I yielded 6.5 with the ability method, which you saw, but you can still yield as low as 5.5 with the map method or method 2 and still come out more per hour doing that method. Before we move on to the full speed demonstration and I show you the numbers on that on the screen, let me show you the setup for the map method. So we're gonna go into their abilities here, and you will see 4 different abilities. And like I said earlier, you need the DLC to do this as efficiently as possible, and keyword as possible, because I don't know, you probably can do this same method. I did not bother to do the math on that because I did have the DLC, but 2 of these are DLC abilities and 2 of them come standard with Disgaea 7. So Unconditional Love increases your max HP by 30%. That comes from Artina. Powerful Souls increases your max HP by 25%. I didn't really care about the SP for this method because I knew I wasn't using that, but it gives you an extra 25%. This one comes from Soizen. Blood Oath increases your max HP by 100%. This one comes from Valtorez, another DLC character. And then Vanguard is one of the same ones that I used on the previous method, standard to Disgaea 7. So 2 of these are DLC and 2 of these are not. And that same set of 4 abilities goes on not only your 10 characters, but once you start filling up your main list here, you can make copies of those and start putting those on all of your characters, no matter what stats they have, all the way down the list, right? And I don't know that I have them all done yet. I think I got about 30 of them. And you can see as I start going through they will change it. See, it stopped about right there. So I've got until about him. So from him up is all the characters that I've put these 4 abilities on to give me 9.7. Now, if I go down this list, actually, where was he at? I'll give you an exact number. Hold on. So he was number 36 out of 117. So I've got this on 36 characters. I could potentially put this on 117 characters. And then you can just picture, you saw the math yourself, with just 36, 9.7. I mean, imagine if I did this 3 times more, how much more I could get. And as I'm doing that, as I'm farming that RP, I'm dumping those stats. Because remember, I said in the beginning, it's a closed system. So as I'm getting those extracts, I'm dumping them into more characters, thus increasing that number more and more, right? So that's my setup for method number 2. So now let's go into the full scale, the full speed demonstration, and I'll show you the times. So this is what method number 2 is going to look like full speed. So just going to find our map. Just like last time how I explained it, we're just going to bring that character out. Run over here to this character, pick it up, throw it into the base panel. It usually takes about 10-15 seconds, give or take, which you'll see when this is done. Base panel's been destroyed, end your turn. She'll run over here, we'll kill her off, end the turn. And we got to go back through that load screen one more time, which is actually something you need to consider in your overall time. And then we will go to that hospital and we will heal. And then right here is where we would stop the clock. So by my timer, that took about a minute for method number 2. Okay, so I'm going to do this one as quickly as possible for method 1, the ability method, and I'm going to time it here on this end as well. So we are going to start, go into our abilities, start loading the abilities. Good luck doing this and not screwing it up. Just go through 10 characters. Because again, really 10 characters is about 10 to 20 characters is about where you're going to maximize the benefit for this. And then you go through and just start taking them off. Done.
May God watch over you.
So that was about the same time, about a minute for that way of doing it too. And I'm sure if your hands were a little bit quicker and you could get a little faster at it, you might be able to finesse that down a little bit more and get the times a little bit better on the ability method. But you're also more prone to error doing that, which will screw your time up. And also, like I said, it's just more beneficial to do it the other way mathematically, because you are not as prone to error and you don't have to go through and set up abilities constantly. So that's it, guys. That's all I've got for you today in today's video for step 1, maxing your extracts. In summary, what we talked about was this being step 1 and getting your extracts and how to farm it through the gacha system. I went over a little bit and explained how the gacha system works. I showed you some numbers. We talked math here for a second, and then I gave you some real-time demonstrations for you to compare for yourself. Now, I will say, as you saw for yourself, I did do a little better on the ability method number 1 this time around. It was about even because I've been practicing this a little bit, but like I said, also I still favor method 2 the most because 1, it yields more and it is not as taxing on my brain to do that farming cycle. I don't have to keep track of what my fingers are doing real fast and don't run the risk of messing that up in the process, because one mistake, loading the wrong abilities or hitting the wrong button while you're doing that, it really messes your time up. The first time I did it, it was about 1 minute and 15 seconds. But if you're one of those players that wants to go through and do it quicker that way, be my guest, but you will still max out at a certain point when you hit that, that limit of benefit there. So again, I hope you learned something. I hope this was beneficial to you. If you found it beneficial and you think it'd be beneficial to somebody else, please like and share it with somebody else. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and Winks out.